afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. As always, on the fourth Wednesday of the month, I'm joined by Mark LaBarr, conservation biologist for Audubon, Vermont. Great to see you again.
Always great to be here.
So you recently had your birdathon, your Audubon birdathon. Tell us a little bit about what that is and how it happens.
Right, and we talked a little bit about that on the last program. The Audubon staff birdathon is a birdathon that we do. It's a fundraiser for Audubon, Vermont. And the staff and board members and some volunteers will get together, and we try to count as many species of birds that we can see. Primarily during the day. We start at about 6 in the morning and finish up somewhere around 4 or 5. Sometimes we'll pick up some birds. I'll pick up some birds since I live at the Audubon at night. And we start at the center and we bird the center, and then we mosey our way down into Richmond. We do it without any use of fossil fuels, so we take pride in not getting in a car. And it's just a great time. It's a fun event for all the Audubon staff, and it brings in some important resources, money that supports the center, lets me come on across the fence. All the things that we do.
Well worth it.
They're well worth it, that's right.
So what did you see?
Well, we always start the birdathon on the front porch, right there at the center. And one of the first birds we had was a black-billed cuckoo. Now, this is a bird that is extremely secretive. It's a very cool bird.
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever seen one.
It has a real cuckoo, cuckoo, gets its name from that. It has that real soft thing, song. It's a big caterpillar year this year, so it seems like the cuckoos, we've seen and heard more of them than we normally do. So some years we get them in numbers, some years we don't, but we had one for our birdathon this year. Of course, on our porch we have our hummingbird feeders, and those hummingbird feeders allow us to get our ruby throats. A pretty easy one. Even with 15 people standing on the porch, they still buzz in to get their little bit of sugar. And then also, because we have some forest right behind the porch, we were able to hear this bird, which is the blue-headed vireo. Now, the blue-headed vireo used to be called the solitary vireo, but they've since changed its name. This is a really cool-looking bird. Just that eye ring right there really makes it kind of stand out.
Okay, and then so you left the porch, and where did you go next?
So right next to the porch we have kind of this old farm field. The Audubon Center is an old ag, it's an old farm. And we've also done some management, some forest management up there, and we pulled in over the past 4 or 5 years this bird, which is called a mourning warbler. Now the mourning warbler likes openings, recently cleared areas with a lot of brambles and things on the down low, and it'll tuck itself in there. So this is a relatively new bird for us at the center, just because of the work that we did there.
Oh, great.
Another bird that likes that old forest habitat is the chestnut-sided warbler, the please, please, please to meet ya. And this is a bird that, again, as those old fields start to grow up in saplings, and we manage for that at the Audubon for this bird in many respects, we pull in chestnut-sided warblers. A little bit further into the woods, areas where we don't necessarily actively manage, but are old fields that are slowly growing up, you run into birds like the American redstart. So this is a bird of forest edges, young forest. It's definitely forest. It definitely pole-sized trees, but it's not necessarily something you would find in a mature forest. And this is a great, male with that bright orange plumage on the side and that black head. And their song is, the way I describe it, is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So they're just kind of counting, and they'll do that over and over and over again. And then, of course, anytime you're around an old farmhouse, there's lilac bushes, there's some, as I joke around with my kids, some shrubbery. You'll pull in the gray catbird. Right. And this is a catbird. You can see that nice orange under the tail. Oftentimes in that shrubbery, in that those lilacs singing away, makes a meowing kind of noise where it gets its name. Catbirds are one of my favorite. We catch them quite a bit at the banding station down at the center. But it was also the first bird that I ever held. I was down at Manomet Bird Observatory, and they were running the banding station. They didn't have any net bags, so the guy that was taking the birds out of the net just handed me the catbird and had me carry it back to the banding station. Wow. So that was one of the first times that I handled a small bird, and I've been doing it for most of my existence now. So.
All right, so after the open field and a little bit of the clear cut, where did you go?
So again, at the Audubon, for those that have been there, it is this place, great diversity, lots of mixed habitats, so it's really easy for us to start picking up you know, the different species there. So we started to head up on the hillside. So on the hillside, that's forest that has grown in a little bit more. There's more hemlock and conifers, and we pick up this beauty, which is the Blackburnian warbler. And this is probably the highlight for us. We get up to Lookout Rock. You can see Mount Mansfield, you can see Camel's Hump, and you can hear the Blackburnian warbler singing. They're a little bit tough to see. They're often high up in the tops of some of these conifers, but every once in a while they'll poke their head out, and you just get this awesome splash of orange and yellow, and it's a great bird for us. This year we had, along with the cuckoo, we had the northern parula, which is a bird. It tends to be more, you know, we don't get it at the center all that often. That shows up. I do a series of listening points as part of the research that we do at the center. And I get this guy every 4 or 5 years. And this guy sang for us on the day of the birdathon, and he stuck around. So he's hopefully breeding up there. But again, another very cool little small neotropical migrant.
And I was going to say, I've never even heard of some of these birds.
Yes, you head a little bit further south and you'll run into them all over the place. You know, these are birds that are here in Vermont. The warblers and a lot of the smaller birds, oftentimes you hear them, but you don't see them.
Right.
You know, once leaf out happens, we often time our birdathon so just before leaf out so that you can actually get a visual of the birds. But oftentimes when I'm doing a lot of my work, it's all by sound. So this little guy, we walked up to the top and we heard that, and right after that we heard a little bit of a bigger version. This is one of our residents at the center, which is of course the barred owl. We were fortunate that we heard this guy, you know, it was morning, so it wasn't later in the day that it was calling, but that was a great bird to add to our list. And then as we move through the forest, we get over down to the Birds of Vermont Museum, and we start following the Sherman Hollow Brook, which is coming down. And when you get along the Sherman Hollow Brook, we look for this guy, which is the Louisiana water thrush. Now, the Louisiana water thrush is a warbler. It gets its name because it kind of looks like a thrush, kind of looks like a wood thrush. And obviously, it's a bird that we find here, probably first identified down in Louisiana. So that's why it got its name. This is a bird that likes to nest and hang out along kind of mountain streams. And it nests up underneath the banks and in areas like that. So as we walk down Sherman Hollow Brook, we're always on the lookout to pick up our Louisiana water thrush for the birdathon.
So what was the last spot of the center that you went to?
Well, my backyard. So we kind of get down, you get down to the Huntington River and you walk into my backyard, and I live right there at the center, and you know, some of the first birds that we see are ones that you probably see around your house, barn swallows.
Right.
You know, so they're clicking around and they're making their noise. We have a pair that's nesting in one of the outbuildings there. You know, classic forked tail, very present as they fly around and as they feed in the air. It's great to have these guys back for us because we didn't have them for a couple years. Our swallow population, I think I brought this up before, we used to have swallows in all of our boxes, tree swallows, and we used to have at least a couple barn swallows. So it's really great to see the barn swallow back at the Audubon. We're near the river, so we picked up a rose-breasted grosbeak while we were there. Again, when you've got 15 people, you've got 15 sets of ears. I was going to say 30 ears. So everybody's listening, and this is a great bird. People compare the song of this guy to a robin with a sore throat. Actually, no, sorry, that's the scarlet tanager. We had one of those too. But this is a much, it sounds like a robin, but it's got more of an extended play. The song is a little bit longer. And the male has that bright rose breast there. So another good one to add to our list. And of course, we're down near the river. And when we're down near the river, we saw that blue-headed vireo. Right. So we picked up another vireo called the warbling vireo.
This would be hard to see, I would think.
This one is hard to see, but the song is, I'll squeeze you if I squeeze you, if I squeeze you, if I can. supposedly. So it's the warble. It kind of warbles along. And so we find these along the Huntington River, and then when we make it down to the Winooski River, the warbling vireos are all over the place.
Now, so at this point, it's time to hit the road.
Right. Get on our bikes. Again, fossil fuel free thing. We cruise down the road, and just down the road we see that bird that just popped up, which is the bobolink.
Right.
There's a couple of fields there just as you cross into the Richmond town line where you can pick up some grassland birds. So we picked up bobolink, we picked up American kestrel, and we also had Savannah sparrow. So this was, the bobolink is one we search for, the computer bird or R2D2 bird, a bird that is, I think you've had Professor Al Strong on with the Bobolink Project.
Correct.
They're doing really good to manage fields for this declining species, but that was a good one for us. We don't always get a bobolink right there. And then we make our way all the way down, and again, I can't list all of the birds. We had a total of 78 species, which is a record high for us. One of them, once we got down to the Winooski River, was the spotted sandpiper. This guy walks around on the sandbanks, and it bobs its tail, so it has a very distinctive look when you see it. And of course, it has those spots on its chest. What's interesting about the spotted sandpiper is, like many sandpipers, they practice polyandry, which means that one female will mate with several males, and the males actually tend the nest and then tend the young. But a pretty common bird that you see along the along a lot of different rivers, but certainly the Winooski.
Interesting.
You get into Richmond, and we pick up chimney swifts. So we know that chimney swifts, using some of the old chimneys and structures in Richmond, right there in downtown. This is a species you can see in a lot of Vermont's villages, flying around. So again, kind of like a swallow. Supposedly it looks like a flying cigar.
Okay.
So we picked up that, and then right at the end of the day, we were pushing for our record, 78 species. We pulled in a killdeer. And with 10 minutes left to go from when we officially decided we were going to end it, we got a killdeer calling out in one of the fields. So a great record for us there.
Now, can people still sponsor you?
They certainly can. Again, it's a fundraiser for us, so feel free. My contact information is at the end of the show, so if they can email me or give a call to the center, and I'll direct them as a way to either send their sponsor in, or they can go online and sponsor as well.
Now, you can sponsor per species, or you can sponsor just a lump sum.
Correct. And since you know the species, it's easy now. So you can calculate how much you can sponsor if you're going to sponsor by species.
So you have another event coming up as well.
Yeah, just in a couple of days, David Sibley is coming to Vermont, and will be speaking here in Burlington. And so that's a big event for us. It's already sold out.
Now, who is he, so if people don't know?
Okay, that's right. Birders know him. David Sibley is kind of the next generation of Roger Torrey Peterson. He's put together a number of different books. His probably most famous one is his Bird Guides of North America, his bird book, Identification Guide. Of course, Roger Torrey Peterson had some of the first ones out. So he is just a renowned author, bird person, and in the ornithological or in the bird world, the Sibley Field Guide is one that is usually in somebody's back pocket or in their bag. So it's great for him to be here, and for Audubon and a number of other sponsors.
So what kind of thing are you going to talk about?
He is going to talk about using drawings and kind of, from what I gather, kind of the philosophy of how you approach bird watching from his perspective. And obviously when he is out, his book, as we talked last time, you can use pictures or you can use drawings. Right. And he combines that artistry of identifying birds and then describing them on paper. And in much the same way that John James Audubon, was an artist and, published that, some of the first books on, birds that you would see by actually putting them down on paper for people to be able to look at.
Well, exciting. Well, if you have a bird-related question or you want to participate in Mark's Birdathon, you can write to him at Audubon, Vermont, 255 Sherman Hollow Road in Huntington. The zip code is 05462. You can also email Mark. His email address is mlabarr@audubon.org. Send Mark your questions, and he'll try to find answers for you in an upcoming edition of Bird Notes. Thanks so much for being with us.
You're very welcome.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.